our first couple of years of like Saturday mornings, it's like you get up early and you get a lot of things done, an impressive amount of things. And really you're looking at your weekend and you're thinking, what are all the things we're going to accomplish today, and this weekend, and look at this gift of time to just get a lot of things done. And then I'm like, am I going to wake him up? Like, why is he still sleeping? And then he's wanting to watch Sports Center.
My Saturdays is about getting up in time for the 11 o'clock football game. Just making sure I don't miss any of the college game day,
Exactly.
So that gets 10. So 10 o'clock Central Time.
Hello, welcome to the Art Espousing Podcast. We are thankful that you are taking time to listen to the show. Today, we're excited to share a conversation that we had with our good friends Justin and Andrea Lathrop.
Yeah, we've known Justin and Andrea for several years now, and they really are some of the best people we know. Justin serves as the Vice President for Strategic Partnerships at Southeastern University. Prior to joining the SCU team, Justin served as the Director of Strategic Relations for the Assemblies of God Church and has worked with several other great organizations like Leadership Network and Convoy of Hope. If you've heard the statement, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, well, we think everyone is like 6 degrees from Justin Lathrop.
Which makes sense that he's in strategic partnerships in any organization.
Exactly. Everybody knows Justin.
That's right. And Andrea is an amazing mom and influential leader. She has served as an executive pastor at 2 large churches and has just recently finished her doctorate in ministry and leadership and global perspectives from Portland Seminary. Pretty fancy.
That's amazing. We are truly thankful that they have agreed to process their relationship dynamic in the light of the Enneagram.
We are hopeful by adding this Enneagram aspect to the Art Espousing podcast, we will encourage you and increase your marriage momentum. The Enneagram is a tool of empathy and learning. This model of the personality fosters growth in self-awareness, spouse awareness, and couple awareness. In marriage, the Enneagram provides an opportunity to identify patterns in the way your spouse responds and behaves and positions you to shift interactions within your everyday life, increasing strength and reducing ways you may inadvertently weaken your relationship without even knowing it.
But before we jump into the conversation, we want you to hear about an exciting opportunity that we believe will take your marriage from good to great. If you're looking for that one thing that could be the game changer for your relationship, then the Marriage Reboot Retreat is just for you.
If you want a greater connection with your spouse, if you are tired of feeling stuck in the same old, if you desire to feel the thrill of fun and discovery again, like you did when you first met, we can help. We support couples to reconnect, recharge, and re-engage to pursue their life purpose together.
The Marriage Reboot Retreat by Married for a Purpose is a private, intensive experience for you and your spouse, working exclusively with Lisa and I for 2 consecutive full days. At the end of the 2 days, you will walk away with a unified purpose for your marriage and a holistic vision for your marriage and family, supported with a real action plan.
If you would like to find out more information about the Marriage Reboot Retreat, you can set up a discovery call with James and I, and we will tell you more about it. The link is in the show notes, or you can direct message us on Instagram at Art Espousing, and we will send you a link to schedule a discovery call.
Justin and Andrea, so good to see you guys. How are y'all doing?
We're doing great.
Doing great. Excited to be with you guys too.
Well, we've been friends for a long time, and it's just really great to have you on the podcast with us and talking all things Enneagram today. But before we do that, we'd love for you to just maybe share about your marriage. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. We've been married 22 years. We met in college about 25 years ago. I can remember the day I saw her for the first time. It was a welcome meeting for the college, and I was in my second year. She was in her first year, even though she was a sophomore. She came a year after me. The day I met her, I actually broke up with my girlfriend that I was in a relationship with. She was on the road traveling in a singing group for the university. And so can't say that like I knew I was going to marry her. And that's why I broke. I just knew that there was something more, I guess would be the way to say it. And so 22 years now, it's never a bad day in all of those years.
Oh, wow.
It's for me. I don't know what she thinks.
We're going to get into that with the Enneagram. Yeah,
That's right. Never a bad day.
Yeah. He told that very beautifully, but we broke up a lot, multiple times in our dating.
And by we,
lives.
She broke up with me multiple times.
Yeah. But best decision I've made outside of choosing to follow Jesus. So just to marry Justin.
Yeah, I think in the beginning years, and this may come up later as we talk more on Enneagram stuff. I mean, it was just hard for Andrea to get her mind wrapped around settling for anything any person would be settling. She had this dream of being a missionary and single and in the African bush and whatever. And so, I can remember when she asked me when we were dating, this is one of the breakup stories, if I'd be willing to go overseas and do missions someday. And I said, maybe London, but that would be probably the extent. And so that didn't end.
So that was a breakup.
Yeah, that was one of them.
Easy. Yeah.
But,
easy button.
So just figuring out, what that means. Calling and you're 20 years old and you have no idea. You just think, I thought I was going to be a youth pastor the rest of my life. I didn't make that 3 years, And so it's just, you kind of learn, I think, over the years, finding out who we are and how we can accomplish, God's will in our lives as a couple and individuals, but within the context of our marriage versus thinking we have to do something crazy on our own to please God or something.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So how long were you guys married before you started having kids?
3 years, 3.5 years, 4.
Yeah, 4. Justin would have been happy if that had happened really early on. And I think I would have been devastated. So we compromised at like 4 years. He was ready and I needed more time.
I was wondering if you did some mission work during there just to decide, like, are we going to be in the mission field or not in those 4 years? Or you're like, no, before you got married, was that dream over?
I think so. Part of it goes into my story of having a really low view of God and the pain that kind of stems from that. So really, it was more about trying to please what I saw as a very angry, disappointed father. And I just had a really low view of God. And so I'm thinking, this is the only chance I stand is to do that kind of sacrifice or that kind of work. The greatest gift Justin has been in my life was to kind of model for me, imperfectly, of course, the unconditional love, and that it wasn't based on my performance and me and all that which ties into my Enneagram number 2. I can see that now. So we kind of set that aside for a while, and I've gotten to travel a good bit. I've been a missions pastor. I still have that kind of stuff in my heart, but just feel very open to how that looks as opposed to more of a formula early on and assuming I knew.
I love it that you actually didn't give up a dream, which is how I set up the question, is you didn't. God still had that for you. And you get Justin.
Yeah.
It's just
it's a win-win.
Win-win all around. Well, you guys are an amazing model of marriage because we know so many couples who know you, younger couples who they look up to you. And we talk about Art of Espousing. You guys really are doing it so well and such a model of a marriage that people can look up to. So it's just awesome to hear your story.
Okay. So Andrea, as we were talking earlier, I have in my mind that you're a certain number, even though you don't identify as that number. And I can't get around it. And you're like, actually, Lisa, I don't identify as that number. But I would love for both of y'all just to tell us what number most resonates with you in the Enneagram. Our listeners know all the 1 through 9. I've already recapped that information. So what do you identify with?
Yeah. So I guess I'll go first on that. For all of our marriage, when it comes to assessments, Myers-Briggs and DISC, and I don't even know, different animals, beavers and retrievers and whatever.
Strengths, weaknesses.
Yeah. She is, she's always just kind of done the assessment for me in her own mind and just told me what I was, which I was just felt like was just easier for everybody.
That says a lot about you, Justin.
As of yesterday was my first time taking Enneagram, even though she's been telling me for the most part I'm a 9. She every once in a while wavers and says something that I don't understand, or that's very 5 or whatever. I don't know. So I did take it and did come out with a 9 wing 1 and did a lot, 15 to 20 minutes of reading on that. So
wow.
Really
it's gone deep.
Diving in on that stuff. And it definitely resonated, with me when I read it going, I think that's the point is you look at it and go, oh yeah, that's totally me or whatever. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Quick defense of that is that, Lisa, you probably told, everyone that, you don't try to analyze other people or use it that way. So I'm more read to Justin,
it's
what do you think about what I just read? This chapter I just read on 9 or that sort of thing, and tried to have deeper conversations with him about it. So
Andrea, I have to ask you a question because I am perplexed about, number one, Justin said, he's like, Andrea did this for me, which feels so 9 of you, Justin.
Right.
But I want to hear where 1 shows up with you, Justin. If you don't know, because you only did 20 minutes reading, I'm just teasing. Or
really, but yes.
Yeah, because I don't know that I would have seen that, but I'm trying to think of the work you do and the relationships you have and how you navigate. I'm just wondering where 1 shows up. And if you don't know, Andrea can speak for you.
Yeah, I don't know other than, and that was the first time after taking the test. I don't think we've ever really gone into wings when we've been talking. But when I read some of the results and kind of the assessment one I took had a really deep dive into the wing side and how important. And I think I could be wrong on this, but it even said that maybe the 9 wing 1, the wing was a little bit more important than other wings. Again, I don't know why that would be. And what it said about it did help me go, oh yeah, I do think that is something for me. I don't know. Do you what I don't know what a 1 is. So do you see the wing? Do you see the wing there?
I know. I thought that was very interesting too. And Lisa, we'll have to talk about this more at our next coffee date, because one of the notes that he had highlighted was around the 1 kind of helps the 9 serve others more and kind of move into action. And yeah. No, that does make sense. And now that you're saying that, it kind of reminds me of what I read. Yeah. I mean, I do think I am, definitely that peacemaker. Definitely don't, look to avoid conflict, which, also has to do with some of my upbringing stuff. But I am definitely an active. I mean, I'm a get it done person. So it's like, I don't like to, not a phlegmatic in the way I work. I want to accomplish things. And so I don't know if that plays into it, or I don't know where that comes from.
I think so. Well, I feel like your 9 is so strong that rigidness of 1, because they can be rigid and legalistic, doesn't resonate with you at all. And then even your other wing option, which is 8, neither of those. So, but they're both very action oriented. So that does make sense. So that's cool.
But also both of them dealing with anger, right, as a core emotion. The 1 would be more towards morality instead of justice.
Things not being done correctly.
Right.
Whereas 8s would be morality. And then 9s just pack it and then they explode and shock themselves that they blew up, and the person they're blowing up with is like also shocked because they've packed it away for a while.
Let's go to Andrea. We'll get so much more information and insights.
No.
Pressure to perform. Okay, so I resonate most with the 3 and the achiever with a very strong 2 wing. And I was reflecting on how years ago I had to be in my late 20s that I had a psych major friend give me this Enneagram assessment. I'd never heard of it before, and really probably not since, for like another 10 years or so. All I remember is that I had come out as the performer. But at the time, I thought I kind of like what that is and I feel good with it. And I just wasn't in a place where I was ready to do deeper work with it. And it was a number of years later where it kind of surfaced again and was like ready to like see where the pain was coming from and where my strategies for getting love and approval were coming from. So it still kind of hits this deep space in me about this need to achieve and to be so conscious of what other people are thinking of me.
I think one of the things I've just demonstrated in marriage right here is that even though Justin isn't reading up on that, at the same time, Andrea, you're not like putting judgment in on him, but you're actually assessing and leading probably with him as a 9 and appreciating those things about what he brings, the strengths, and it just gives language to identify. I think sometimes one or the other, it's not always females, but that we get that in our mind. We want to grow, we want to learn, and then we push it on a spouse to do like, you need to read about yourself. And so which would not be a good idea, so I love how this models that, which is part of what we wanted to do, is to say, sometimes our spouse isn't going to do all the assessments, but we do it for them. And then we learn and then we go, oh, I can shape this. And so it's really a beautiful measuring because
there's no doubt that, her understanding those things better than me just has helped our marriage in the sense of she just knows how I'm going to react to things and why I react to them that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's always like she has a good response to that, but at least she understands. And so I could definitely sense part of that was through counseling, part of that was through assessments, but just when we started to kind of figure out each other and how we respond to, whether it's conflict or even good things in our lives, and how that's different, like we do it differently completely. I mean, it's very obvious. And I think in the early years, it was annoying to her. I mean, it might still be annoying, but outwardly, she would respond to that. And I would too. And then as you kind of get older and figure out, whether environment or just upbringing or personality type, we just have ways of responding, and it's not bad or good. It's just different. And that's been one of the biggest things that's helped our marriages, having an understanding around that. I remember our going to counseling for the first time. We were 5 years into marriage, and it wasn't like we were on the brink of divorce, but it was just, it was definitely not great. And we heard our pastor say he was going to counseling at our church, and it was just so foreign to me. I mean, my mom was a counselor growing up in the home. Like crazy people sitting on my living room couch waiting for an appointment with her. Like that's all I knew of counseling. And I'm like, that's not, we're not crazy. And going to a counselor, I mean, she was so excited because it was like, they're going to fix me so quick. Yes. And I mean, we went every week for maybe 6 weeks to start. And like all he wanted to do was talk about Andrea. It was so great. Like she was like, man, she thought we were going to just deal with this. Let's just work with her on this. And I sat there and loved every minute of it. But the thing that was most freeing about that time, that counseling in the beginning, because we were just struggling, is he said to us, hey, when you go home today from this meeting or this appointment, my only homework to you is not to work on your marriage. And it was so foreign. I mean, I was like, what? I mean, we're just trying so hard. Of course, she's reading books to get better. And I'm just going, well, I guess this is not going to be great. And him saying that, he's like, you've had 5 years, you haven't figured it out. Let's just meet every week for a few weeks, and then we'll look at it. But let me give you the tools first before you start evaluating after 1 hour of counseling whether or not you got this all figured out. And that was a game changer for me, especially, I'm sure for both of us, but just knowing that pressure was off, that I got to fix all this stuff for her this next week. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble.
Well, I love that, because there's so much work that's been done. Obviously, when we're talking about Enneagram or any kind of assessment, God does so much work in our lives through other means, whether obviously Holy Spirit working in us and correcting and us listening and heeding, or counselors or small groups or people we aspire to be like. But I do think often Enneagram gives language to things that we're like otherwise wouldn't have language around.
Yeah.
So it helps us be able to actually empathize and understand, like as James is an 8, when I see him restraining, I know that he's working hard. And I'm like, wow, look at that. He didn't say a word. So he didn't challenge a thing. So, or I'm sure if Justin is speaking and sharing feelings, you're going to stop and listen, Andrea, because obviously as a 9, that's not something he's just going to share all kinds of words and deep thoughts and feelings. Would that be true, Andrea?
That would be true. They're fewer and
But I would, with that, there's no doubt. I mean, I think it's probably not a good thing to give people advice of like how you change your spouse, like I know that's like the thing not to say when you're getting married is you're going to change that person. But I mean, watching her over 25 years go deep with people and be willing to say something where I feel like I'm just going, dude, let's just end the time here. Why do we need to do this last, encouragement or edification time to this person? And being so, not annoyed would be too strong, but just being bothered by that in the early years to now, and still being bothered by it, I guess. But now seeing it and going, okay, it's almost like what would Andrea do, feeling in my mind. And I'm going, okay, I'm going to just step out and say something that I wouldn't normally say. And she has definitely taught me that. And it's not natural for me. It's not comfortable. It's never comfortable for me, never once. And I do see the value in it. And so it's been interesting, to say it like that, to watch that kind of change me over time.
I love it.
I'm interested, going back early in your marriage, you said after like 5 years, you did some counseling. Now knowing a little bit more about the Enneagram and your core types, 9 being the peacemaker, 3 being the achiever, performer, what did your relationship look like around conflict? How did you respond to each other with your types? And you said you learned some skills like now, like what are some skills that you've learned? Because conflict still happens, right? So how do you do it differently?
Yeah, well, I think for me, it was, well, like, what are all the things we can do to get better? And that was part of the conflict, which is those early years was my frustration over what I felt was kind of a lack of effort and productivity and let's be the best we can possibly be, And so that unspoken and spoken ways was a lot to put on someone. And of course, I wasn't in a healthy place with all of that either. So that was really painful. I mean, the lighthearted side of it was like our first couple of years of like Saturday mornings. It's like, you get up early and you get a lot of things done, an impressive amount of things. And really you're looking at your weekend and you're thinking, what are all the things we're going to accomplish today, and this weekend and look at this gift of time to just get a lot of things done. And then I'm like, am I going to wake him up? Like, why is he still sleeping? And then he's wanting to watch Sports Center.
Yeah, my Saturdays is about getting up in time for the 11 o'clock football game. Just making sure I don't miss any of the college game day.
Exactly.
So that gets 10. So 10 o'clock Central Time, that is. I think that was, that's just a glimpse into a bigger problem, probably just on the expectation side and dealing with conflict. But I think in those areas you were just frustrated with me. And I'm going, I was at work this week. Why wouldn't I sleep in and I get the day off, So that was learning curve for us.
I think in general, it would be like Justin's mantra would maybe be like, I'm fine, or we're good, or we're fine, and I'm like, we can be better. And that's a huge difference in seeing the world and kind of approaching the world. And so I think that the Enneagram for me has been, just such a gift. And it's helped me to see the gift that Justin has brought to my life over the long haul, which the non-anxious presence that he, like the calming part, like I needed it so desperately in my life. I didn't even know how much I needed kind of what he brings to every room and every situation. And so just like he would say, some of my things have shaped him, he has also been a huge shaping force in my life. And I've so appreciated the steadiness of a 9, the calmness of a 9, the we're going to be okay. Why don't we just enjoy this time together, as opposed to let's run around frantically trying to outdo ourselves from yesterday, and all that anxiousness.
Yeah, I think the greatest gift I think I have, spiritual gift, well, it's not a spiritual gift, I guess, but is I don't have guilt. I don't struggle with that. And so for her, it's always, who should we be going out with today? Or should you post that because someone else is going to see that you were at this thing and they didn't get involved. I go, it doesn't even compute with me. I tell people, the whole FOMO thing. I have this, coined a term fogey, which is fear of getting invited. I walk around church all Sunday morning with this fogey of making sure we don't get into a situation where we're going to get invited to something and I just want to go home. So I think that's off the subject, but I think I've served her in that way, but she's definitely, there's no doubt, who knows what my life would look like without her when it comes to relationships and going deep with people and having those kind of moments. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah. So I love that you've actually found that rhythm of how it strengthens one another. But I know with James and I, we've found that also for ourselves. But at the same time, we have so much growing to do. But I love it.
We still got some growing. Well, she does, I guess. But
yeah, Justin's arrived. He's fine.
I know 9s have a tendency to avoid conflict. So was that part of the tension too, that Andrea, you would we should be better. And Justin was just not engaging in the conflict, maybe?
Yeah. And it's still, I think it's still a struggle for me. I still am in counseling for my, conflict avoidance. So, I hope that it's something I'm, incrementally getting better at, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I think especially early on, him moving away from me, when I would try to raise issues or frustrations, and I would look back and I would have grace for myself, but go, I wasn't doing it in the most loving, gracious way too early on, but to watch him kind of go further away, have fewer words, avoid more and disengage more was really painful. And I think that's how we kind of ended up going, I think we need kind of a third neutral thing because we aren't hearing each other at all. And again, the Enneagram is become this like remarkable tool of understanding and empathy and going, oh, you don't hate me, or I'm not overwhelming or too needy or too much or too intense. This is who you are, what you're wrestling with and what you're, kind of growing through. And this is where I'm coming from. And so it's kind of helped increase the understanding as opposed to like personalizing some of the things we do in conflict.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because 4, 5s, and 9s withdraw. That's a word that would describe them. And 3, 7s, and 8s are assertive, which is what y'all have beautifully just demonstrated, is that Justin withdraw, but the more the assertive person presses in, and then the withdrawing comes more.
Yeah.
And so there's like this banter. James and I've worked with a couple. It's actually the same. Assertive wife, withdrawn husband. And the more she would want him to move toward action, the less he did, and the more withdrawn he got. And so they were just in this like
crazy cycle. It's just like, I want you to know you're pushing, I'm going to hide, but I want you to drive in. So yeah.
But they're 11 years in. You guys are 22 years in. So you're figuring out the dynamics of that, which is really cool because again, that just gives language to go. Justin isn't just withdrawing because he doesn't love you. He's withdrawing because that's how he's wired. And when he leans in and is trying to, and is moving forward to you, then you're like, gosh, he's really working hard. Or if you're trying to settle down and not go, you need to be up at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning and get a lot of things done before 10 o'clock. The ball game.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm more of a 7:30. She's 5, 6. But that's my sleeping.
You've matured.
That's my Saturday.
Look at him, all grown up.
Yeah,
I know.
I wanted to highlight something you said there, Andrea, though, is that you understood that was how Justin is wired. And I think that's the thing that Lisa and I've always loved about this tool is that it is a tool of empathy. Like instead of casting blame as why aren't you more like me? It's like, I see how God has made you and I can empathize with what's actually going on inside of you. So instead of feeling like, why is Justin always withdrawing from me? Well, that's how he's made and it's a motivation side of him. So understanding that. And then I love just the fact of what you guys said, ultimately we talk about drawing the circle around yourself and working on everybody in the circle. And, that's what this tool actually gives the ability to do. I remember the first time I saw that I was an 8 and, I don't know how you guys responded. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's what I'm. I was kind of excited about it. It's like it made sense, like everything I experienced all my life, but then take that knowledge and grow from it and develop myself and not expect that Lisa's going to develop me, but I'm going to grow in it and understand that she's a 2. I can also lean in to help her grow and strengthen that part of her life. So
Justin, at the beginning of this, you said, I know we're not supposed to like help our spouses change, but the truth is that shouldn't be our motivation, but it is beautiful when it just happens because where you start growing in strength together. And I think this has been a beautiful modeling of how you two have leveraged one another's strengths to grow stronger, and I would say that it's the same with James and myself as an 8. He doesn't have a hard time moving toward action and deciding things. I have a very hard time as a 2 making those decisions and moving, and he's given me courage to do that and go, you can do it. Even if you mess up, it's going to be good. You'll be moving forward. And y'all's relationship is beautiful. And we've got to see it firsthand and right up close and personal. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Thank you today for being on the podcast. Looking forward to just continue watching your art espousing flourish as you are impacting the world. And so many people are looking up to you guys. So thank you guys.
We love you guys.
We love you guys.
Yeah, so grateful these years of friendship and know there's a lot more to come.
Well, there you go. Thanks again, Justin and Andrea. And thank you for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts and answer questions you have about what we shared today. You can email us at hello@artespousing.com or direct message us on Instagram at artespousing.
If you found this episode helpful, please let your friends know by sharing it with them. You can also help other people find the podcast by rating the podcast and leaving us a review.
Hope you'll join us next week. We're going to be talking about how to avoid small fractures in your relationship from becoming catastrophic issues.
We have a great example for that. You're not going to want to miss it. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the Art Espousing Podcast. Until then, bye-bye.